Welcome back, everybody, to the Wild at Heart podcast here in the week of August 15th. For those of you who have been wondering, we've been off for 3 weeks. Just needed a break, needed to let the staff have some family vacation time, and so we took 3 weeks off. Hope you noticed that. But we are glad to be back with you now with new content and live material. Back in June, so we can go all the way back to the month of June, I had some of the team here in the podcast studio with me, Alan and Alex, Jamie from our staff, and we were talking about kind of the 2-year effects of the global trauma, the low reserves, and I thought it would be really good now that we've had some vacation to have the gang back. So Alex, Alan, Jamie, welcome back.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Good to have you guys back in here. And folks, we didn't rehearse this. We are coming in fresh with how are you doing? Where are we now? We were talking back in June about how our reserves tell the true story and what it's been like on all of us and the effects of pandemic trauma and the global pressures and the warfare of living in an hour like we're living in. And the apathy, lethargy, creep. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. The last part, the creep, the lethargy.
Yeah, that's still familiar.
I'm right back in June.
Okay. So what did we talk about? How many we covered that? Let's help one another and our listeners. What do you remember from those conversations?
I remember that my tank was below empty. And, I think I'd use the analogy of some vehicles have the reserve tank. So the main gas tank and the reserve tank. And if I were that vehicle, had gone on empty on my main tank, but had nothing in the reserve tank. So that's a very vivid memory from that time and our conversation there, that I was just out of gas and trying to make it through.
I remember the reserve tank story. Yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah, I do remember reserves being low, then talking about that. But I remember the effect of that was that I didn't have the capacities that I normally would have, patience. And I remember the sense of just the guilt of that, because it felt like I should be doing so much better than I was at that time.
Right.
Because I don't feel like I was living poorly, making poor choices, but I was still really low, and that was a little embarrassing.
Even after a lot of soul care.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
You were low.
yep.
And we're putting this I don't know how you're doing now, so
Yeah, right.
we're going to find out here in just a moment. What else do you remember from, it was June 20th and 27th podcast. It was,
I remember in the midst of the recordings and then after going, I am in worse shape than I thought I was. Like, I wasn't doing well, and I think that our podcast would reflect that, but there was almost a sense of trying to be doing better than I am, and just through those conversations realizing I'm actually more empty than I try to be, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I found myself just going, wow, I think I need more even than I thought I did during those recordings.
yeah. You were the one who introduced the idea of the lethargy, apathy creep of like, I love making dinner for my family,
Yes.
not making dinner as often as I'd like to.
Right.
Love working out, not working out as much as I'd like to. Kind of that creep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was a really helpful concept to me.
I think what grew out of that in that conversation that became really, really helpful was realizing that there is an attrition to that, right? That lethargy, creep will work its way into more inner parts of your life.
Yeah.
And I think you named it, John, the epicenter, and the epicenter being our life with God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where all the lights on the dash are on when it starts invading that epicenter of your life with God. And you start feeling the
Totally.
lethargy of, I don't want to pray today. I
Mhm.
don't want to
Mm.
spend time with God today.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just tired.
Yep.
Right. That was huge for me too,
Yeah.
that whole concept. I hope we talk more about that because
Well, I just appreciated your
Yeah.
candor, Jamie, last time
Mhm.
because you admitted we were rolling out 30 Days to Resilient,
Uh-huh.
which you have to have not listened to the podcast for a very long time
Yeah.
not to know what that is. But we have an app called the Pause app, the 1 minute pause. And we released a new program in that, a morning and evening centering prayer, meditation, beautiful communion with God program for 30 days, 30 days to resilient morning and evening. And Jamie, you were admitting that the whole staff is like, yippee, and let's get on board. And you're like, really?
One more thing.
And you did one
Right.
session and realized how wonderful it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a fascinating little anecdote on that. The wonderful news is we have 30,000 people currently enrolled in 30 days
Whoa.
to
That's
Resilient.
phenomenal.
That's
It's
amazing.
just amazing. So all of
Yeah.
you listening who are in there, like, way to go, folks.
Yeah.
Such a
Yes.
good choice. Oh my gosh, it's so helpful and so
Mhm.
wonderful. I'm on my second time through
Mm.
because I'm aware that
Mm.
that I just need it. I just need that morning and evening help.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll listen to a session twice in a day. I'll do the morning session and I'll do it again an hour later.
Mhm.
But here's a fascinating piece of information. But not very many people are completing it.
Really?
Yeah. In other words,
Interesting.
they started it and they're
Mhm.
somewhere in it. And I have a friend of mine who's probably listening to this right now admitted to me, I can't get to the evening sessions. I have to listen because you have to unlock each session to move on.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm doing the evening sessions the next day. So he's looking at 60 days to Resilient,
Uh-huh.
which is fine. That's totally fine. But I just find it fascinating. It's like, wow, we don't have 8 minutes
Mhm.
for God, for our souls. Like, that's how crowded life feels.
Right.
That's how low some of us, our capacity is. It's like, oh, I just don't have it today. So I either don't have room for it or I just don't have it.
Mhm.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Mm.
It's a fascinating thing. Thrilled with the number of people in the program. Really want to encourage folks to stick with it. Anyhow, what we were doing was reviewing the idea of lethargy, apathy creep, getting in closer and closer. First, you give up the gym, and then you give up your evening walk and you give up your small group and it starts creeping in. And then it gets into the absolute epicenter, which is your life with God, the source of our recovery and resilience in this hour. So that was June. And then in July, we learned as a ministry, it's really helpful if we can coordinate everybody's vacation time. And it's not mandatory. People can take their vacation whenever they want to take it. But we try and get everybody to focus on July because if we're all out, somewhere in the month of July, it's just more helpful with meetings and projects and recordings like this one and stuff. So we are all coming back now from various vacations and staycations and folks just enjoying, mornings on their deck, reading in the sun, and other people got to the beach. And how are you now? Reflecting back on June, reflecting on the 2 years that we've been living through and the desolation that's been trying to get in and kind of all the things we've been talking about. How are you? How was summer?
Okay, I'll go first. I'm doing a lot better. I wouldn't say I'm 100% in terms of having 100% reserves and ready for the next big thing in life, but I'm doing better. And getting some time away, obviously, was great.
Yes.
And Mel and I got to go celebrate our 25th, and we did a big trip, and actually went up to Alaska, and
Happy anniversary.
yeah, and I never been up there, and I didn't realize Eden moves to Alaska every July. Like, it's incredible. And for the time that Mel and I were in Alaska, the timing was really pretty cool with 30 days, because I had started the 30 days program previous to us heading out on that trip. And I know we'll talk more about the 30 days in this podcast, but man, John, like, it is anointed. And my experience of it was like you, Jamie, it was a little bit of, do I really want to jump into this? Like, do I have the energy for it? That sort of thing. So it took a little bit of.
Plus, I'm going on vacation.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Right. And and that was part of the consideration. Do I really want to do this while I'm in Alaska? This is going to remind me of work. But I had started it a few weeks previous to that. And oh my gosh, like, the kindness of the process, the way that you lead people through it, there's nothing demanding about it. It is soul filling, and it is receiving the life of God. And it's a very easy way to do it. It's a kind way to do it. So I was in when we went on this trip, but it so happened that the trip coincided with it'd be the fifth week, the fifth block that you did of 5 days each.
The Eden temple of your heart.
Yes.
Yes.
And to be in Alaska and, sitting outside, like, the imagery is beautiful on the app, but I'd set the phone aside and just look out into these bays and these fjords and glaciers and encounter God through the app and through what you are leading in terms of receiving the Eden glory of God into our heart. And that was immensely helpful. And so I would say getting away was helpful, but I think what was mostly helpful to me in the last month has been that process of renewing just simply my love for God, renewing the depth of God in my heart, and connecting with him there. So I do feel better coming back.
So grateful to know that.
Yeah.
How's that reserve tank, Alan?
Yeah, great question. To me, the last month has filled my primary tank to full. At least this is the way I look at it. But the reserve tank now, I actually have the capability to start filling so that it'll be there when I need it. Like, I came back a couple of days ago to the outpost for our first day, really feeling like I'm here. Now, like Alex, I don't have enough in me for some major, massive thing, but I feel like my day-to-day is back again. And before I left, friends would text me, reach out, how are you doing? And I would have to just respond and say, I really appreciate you reaching out. Even a text feels overwhelming right now to me, because in my mind, at least, no matter how I respond, you're going to respond back, and then I'm going to need to respond back. And I don't have that in me. So I'm going to have to get back to you in August, because I literally didn't have the energy or even the brain cells to think through those kind of conversations that were pretty simple. So that's how I went in to the beginning of July. And we got to spend time at the beach through a lot of miraculous ways that God moved and that people moved. And it was such a gift. And it was such what our souls needed. Our whole family got to go. And it was just a week of leisure, a walk about a block and a half from where we were staying to the beach. And the beach was mostly empty. And so it was just nature, beauty, just the sound of the waves in the ocean. But I'll tell you a funny story at the beginning. So I hadn't seen the ocean, like I said, in 6 years. And we're finally there. And so we get there in time to have dinner at this restaurant that's right. You just walk across the parking lot and the beach is there. So we go into the restaurant, we park, and we get the little buzzer that'll tell you when your table's ready. And so they said, it's going to be 30, 45 minutes. And we're like, fine, we'll just go walk on the beach and we'll get the buzz when it's time. So all 5 of us go down and walk to the beach. And it's like one of those moments in a movie where, you're like, here it is, finally. And after all this time, and it was sunset and it was beauty. And so Kelly and the kids run into the water, and I'm standing there just looking, and I'm holding the beeper. And I'm like, I did. And I couldn't get their attention because they're already in the water. And so I had to just turn and go back to the restaurant. And I felt like it was God's playful way of saying at the very beginning of that, yeah, you need the beach and the ocean for your soul. And that's a glimpse. You're going to get it, but mainly you need me. You need me more than you need the ocean. And so it just set the course of the trip in a playful way in the right direction for me, which was, yep, we're here. And this is what I've been longing for. But God, you're right. I'm actually longing more for you this week in this setting.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Really glad you got to the beach. Really glad that at least your daily tanks are doing better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% better on the daily tanks.
That's really
now
good
I can work on the reserves.
Okay. Okay. Jamie, how about you?
Yeah, I resonate with that, like the main tank getting full, or I don't know that mine is full, but just with some time and space, I'm more full than I was back in June. But along with that analogy, that filling of that tank for me has now given me some space to be able to work on the reserves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's part of me that's a little tempted to go to shame and disgrace of the ministry because I'm not 100%, but just to have some time to deliberately focus on pushing back those things that were encroaching on the epicenter gave me some space to breathe, gave me some space to move, gave me some energy for my daily life. And now that I have that, I feel like God is saying, now let's tackle that epicenter. Now let's work on the reserves. I couldn't have done that, though, at the beginning of our time off, and I wasn't able to even access that portion. But through the past few weeks, just to have some pushback away from the epicenter, clear things out a little bit, and now I can look towards that. That's been amazing. That's where God is going with this. It's not that July was like the downpour that I needed, but it was a way to push back and to gain some insight into what I need now for life and for wholeness.
Yeah. That is often true for people approaching counseling, that what they actually need first, they need rest in order to be able to enter into the process. Because you suggest counseling to them, that it would be very, very helpful and healing and life-giving and restorative. And they're like, I can't even face that. I don't have the energy to tackle those issues in my life. Don't want to go there right now. But if you can get a little bit back in your tank,
right,
you feel...
It doesn't feel as overwhelming.
Yes.
It feels like you can take some baby steps.
There you go. That's good. I'm really glad to hear this. We haven't touched base, and I thought we'd just go ahead and do it in the studio for the benefit of our friends as well.
Well, so how about you, John?
John.
We had a very, very funny marital moment last night in our house. So we are in August, and demands are coming. And Stacy was kind of in the posture of, hey, that's okay. Here we go. Like, let's say yes to these things. And I'm like, babe, hang on. Can we just, like, before you say yes, don't answer that text right now. Let's just talk about how we're actually doing. I said, honey, yes, we got some time away in July. We did. And We got up to a cabin in the mountains, very, very simple walks, reading, naps. We napped every day. We did. We got 2 wonderful weeks of that. I said, sweetheart, what it feels like is we pulled into the gas station and we got a half a tank. and I, woohoo, like I'm grateful. But hun, it's a half a tank. We can't start burning through that half a tank right now. My God, we just got it back. We have got, you could see like the lights beginning to go on. She's like, oh, you are right. And even the analogy of pulling into the station and getting half a tank really helped her. She went, okay, that's right. That's true. Yeah, no, I don't have a full tank. I have a half a tank. I said, right. So what will you do now to increase that half a tank? Not just, stomp on the accelerator and burn through it in August, because we actually need that for the coming fall. We've got, 3 events for the ministry coming up. We've got a lot going on. There's some international things. So like, babe, like we can't just blow through the genuine gift and reserves we did get. Yeah, praise God. Thank you. It's half a tank.
Yeah.
And so we need to add to that now. So that's how I'm doing. I'm grateful. I'm well. I love the woods. I love the naps. I loved the permission to read or not read.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to read today. Just the permission to be a human being. But today I was back at my desk, not for the first time, but I was at my desk today and I was going through email and the requests.
I love that laugh.
Jamie knows.
Go ahead, Jamie, finish the sentence.
There's a few requests of your time, John.
Yes, the requests are pouring in. And I noticed my heart's reaction. I wasn't leaping with like, ooh, far out. Ooh, awesome. Oh, I can't wait to get back to this person. Now, I love you out there, those of you who are wondering if it's you. But it was very, very telling that, yep, I got a half a tank. Super grateful for that. It's not enough. And I could blow through it very, very quickly if I don't live well right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just offer. Yes, yes, yes. Give.
What you're saying reminds me, John, just last week we had a situation at home where our youngest Chase is 17 and he's been given the kind of the older family car to use, the Suburban. But what happened was the Suburban was stuck permanently in 4-wheel drive.
Oh, no.
And so it couldn't get out. And we don't know how it clicked into it, but it couldn't click out. And so we had to take it to the mechanic and he was like, yeah, man, you're going to burn through tanks of gas every couple of days until you shift into 2-wheel drive. And so he had to fix it. And we did. And now everything's normal again. But this analogy we're talking about with gas and with our tanks, like no matter what Chase did until it could go into 2-wheel drive, we were going to forever be burning through gas. And to me, it was another way God was showing me, Alan, you need to get out of 4-wheel drive, because if your reserves are really low, it may be because of the way you're choosing to kind of drive your life, how you're so driven.
Yeah. Now let me ask you a couple questions. So back in June, what we were reflecting on, low reserve tanks, COVID brain, the forgetfulness, the memory loss, the apathy, lethargy creep, are the effects of living in the hour that we're living in right now. They weren't the effects from, wow, May was really rough. And woohoo, we got July, now we're okay because it fixed May. What we were reflecting on was to be a human being right now, and particularly to be a friend of Jesus in this hour. It's a very, very draining hour on the earth for a whole lot of reasons. The pandemic trauma, what that actually did to the human brain, to the soul. The spiritual warfare of the hour is very, very intense. And the lure to the apathy, lethargy, is you begin to try and resist that. you realize, oh my gosh, this is stronger than me.
Mhm.
This isn't just me. So that was what had led up to the conversations, the 2 podcasts in June. We've gotten some reserves. We've come up for air, got away for a week or 2. People got some rest. They got some joy. Alan, before we left, we were cranking to get 30 days done.
Right.
We were plowing through recordings, edits, multiple edits, re-listen to this file. There's just a lot of work to get a project like that done. What if I told you that we need to redo it this fall?
Well, I think Taco Bell is hiring right now. And I can do bean burritos quicker than that. But yeah, it would be exposing immediately. That question is exposing, because I don't have it in the tank to do that. And I would find a way somehow, of course. But yeah, I think I would just burn out really fast trying to get there.
Yeah. And Jamie, we were launching Resilient, and we had, I don't know how many interviews I did in June. I think it was 60. And booking those and rebooking and coordinating and working with the publishing company and and all that stuff. What if I told you we're doing that?
Don't. I just can't hear it.
Right? Aren't you having a physical reaction to that right now?
I am. It was a lot.
It was a lot. Okay. Alex, right?
What if you told me we were doing an event in 3 weeks?
Oh.
This is where it gets brutal. Listeners.
We
are doing an event in 3 weeks.
What?
What if I told you we were doing 3 events this fall?
Yeah, we are doing 3 events this fall.
Yeah. What's your body doing right now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my immediate reaction is, oh man, how am I going to do that?
Yep.
How am I going to do that?
Same here.
And it makes me back up, and it makes me go, okay, God, I need you. I need you. Like he's the only way.
Yeah. Here's why I bring that up. Summer for most people, not for everyone, but summer for most people is what we just experienced. You get away to the cabin, you get to the lake, you have some friends over, you do some barbecues. It's just a more chill time of year. Everybody kind of chills. And so, yeah, the restaurants are open and the decks are open and patios and all that. Margaritas on, and the sunset is really helpful. It is helpful. We feel somewhat refreshed. We do. But have you watched any of the news right now on what the airlines have been like, particularly international travel? There were so many bags in Heathrow that United had to send a separate 757 or whatever, some huge, one of those transatlantic airliners, just empty to go pick up the bags. The international travel has been off the charts this summer. Everybody's out there getting joy. Everybody's out there, trying to get life, get summer, mountain biking and swimming and all this kind of stuff, which is good and insufficient. It's good. It's insufficient. And my concern is the momentary relief makes you feel like, hey, all right. Wow, we're past it all. I'm back. I'm good again. It's fine. And then you look at your fall, and if I were to say, hey, Jamie, we actually need to get another 60 interviews booked in September and October, you would just wilt. Right?
Right.
And I would. I can't.
And what I want to say also is the fact that you were at the ranch for 2 weeks, that didn't mean that people weren't requesting of your time then. And so there's backlog.
Yeah.
So it's not like we, in whatever capacity, stepped out for a period of time and the world also stopped to allow us to do that. And it will pick back up when we're in the office. But
you come to the backlog. Yeah. And Alex, you're dropping your daughter off at college this month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's where I'm just going to stay present to today because I don't like crying on podcasts.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not going to make you cry, but life
yeah,
keeps coming.
it does.
Life keeps coming.
Yeah.
And so, what I thought would be helpful to reflect on is the difference between what we would call the natural assistance, the natural help, the natural graces,
Hmm.
and the supernatural that help. Because Get Your Life Back was largely around the natural graces, learning to pause, learning to release, less technology, get into beauty. And those are all, it works. I mean, you just heard the four of us say
Right.
it works.
Hmm.
Alaska worked,
Hmm.
right? It worked. Beauty
Yeah.
worked.
Totally.
Yeah. Fishing worked. Solitude worked. Walks in the woods worked, right?
Absolutely.
Yep, it works. It helps. But it is not sufficient. It's helpful, but not sufficient. And the false relief that can really creep in until the next thing hits and you go, oh man, I don't know. I don't know that I can face this fall. I don't know that I can, whatever it is, the challenges that our listeners are facing. I have half a tank, but I could burn through that so fast.
Well, and then we start putting our false hope in the next Alaska trip or beach trip in,
Mhm.
okay,
Yes.
well,
Yeah,
in
right.
12
Right.
months.
Yes.
And we're toast at that point,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you into like the core of my experience of God while I was away. It was really fascinating. I love nature. I love rivers. I love beauty. I love lakes. I love fly fishing. I got to do a little, but not a lot. And every time I would go out to do like an adventure, it would kind of just go okay. Like literally, the phenomenon with fly fishing is I would catch one fish. One.
Mhm.
And I'm on these little streams and stuff that normally, you're catching these little brook trout. I'd catch, 20 in an outing, catch one. And here's what was going on. I could hear God saying to me, John, my Eden, not the one you're trying to create. My Eden. In other words, you need supernatural resilience. You need more than a day on a stream, John. That won't carry you through the fall. It will refresh you, but it's not sufficient. And it was amazing how he kept redirecting and redirecting and redirecting my heart to what I needed, which was some very deep and very profound time with God. I would do 30 days. I do it 4 times a day. I do 2 morning, 2 evening. I mean, in worship and prayer and walks, like deep immersion, because the natural graces are helpful and they refresh and renew. They really do. I love beauty. It renews, but it isn't sufficient to the need
Hmm.
of our full recovery. So like to your empty reserve tank, it's not sufficient to that need, nor is it sufficient to address, the things, Jamie, you're saying. You have enough room now to look at the things he really wants to address.
Right.
Yeah. So we're going to pause the podcast here, and we're going to pick up next week with part 2 of this conversation.